I'm about to get into the stats. I need to put these somewhere. Hello and welcome to another weekend video from me, Johanna, oh no, Lucy, my dog and books. Lucy's desperate to get on here, but you can't, I need my laptop. It's the February reading wrap up, March hopefuls, some of which I know and some you're going to help me pick. So grab a cuppa and settle in. I've just got some coffee in my self-care bear's mug. Can't remember where I got that. Typo or something. Anyway, got my trusty laptop because the stats, I need that. Also, before I get into the stats, I have to really apologise for the washing machine noises in the background. My neighbour's washing machine is broke and I've promised I'll do as much washing as she needs done till her new washing machine comes, because been there. Hopefully it's not too loud. And the OH is working in his office, so you might hear other voices in the distance. Meanwhile, the kids are just quietly observing me talking to you. Right, let's get into the stats for February. Also, does anyone feel like, how was January felt like 57 weeks long and then February just blink of an eye? But now we're in March. And it's feeling spring-like today. So, I'm about to get into the stats. I need to put these somewhere. I just realised I hadn't updated my storygraph, so job done. For some reason it's only, anyway, I definitely read 16 books. You can count them as I go through. My moods have been all over, as you can see, but mostly dark, tense and mysterious. Yes, Lucy, there's neighbours walking their dogs. How dare they? Shh. Pace, mostly medium, a little bit fast. Page numbers, this seems to be the norm between 300 and 499 pages. I don't know what my 500 plus page book was. Mostly, my laptop keeps falling, 87% fiction, and you'll see maybe had two, I'm looking down at my books, maybe had 2 non-fiction, and you can see my genres: thriller, horror, mystery, literary, dystopian, LGBTQIA+, and the other ones have just been like one book. Format, 60% audio. I'm leaning heavily into audio right now, and it's a little bit of just my time, my ability to like sit down and actually read. So audio has been a saving grace in that respect, but still 33% audio and 7% digital, which will be ebooks. The average start rating, which seems to be, well, we're only in the second, well, we've only just had the second month of the year, but so far I'm like about a 3.4, 3.5, so that was the same. No 5 stars yet, but some really good ones in the mix, and then one I gave 1 star to. That there is the stats. Now let's get into the books and the bookish chat around it. Lucy's not going to like that if I put that laptop near her. She wants space. So some people do this in, you know, worst to best books, or best books to worst. Well, I don't know if I've seen any. Mine is just whatever order they are in this pile, which has fallen over 3 times since I've tried to record this. So bear with. The first one is a non-fiction. It's How to Winter by Kari Leibowitz. And this is a non-fiction book about harnessing your mindset to thrive in cold, dark or difficult times. Read this as part of Lauren and the Book's Patreon book club, and it got quite mixed reviews, I have to be honest, but I actually really enjoyed it. I'm not someone that really tends to struggle with winter, although I would say that kind of the winters here in Scotland, as they get greyer and wetter and stormier, I'm struggling more with than, you know, cosy frosty days. So there was some tips in here that I was able to take forward coming into the next winter, but also a season I really struggle with because I'm not very good in heat is the summer. And Lauren in the books talked about this as well, where she's very similar, really struggles in summer. I really struggle in summer, and I say that as a Scottish person living in Scotland who, to some people that live in hot countries, summer in Scotland isn't that hot, but if you get me in days that is over 20+ degrees centigrade, I struggle. So there's tips in here that is really good for looking at different seasons, and I think you could apply this to any season, but more people struggle with winter than other seasons. And it talks about, do you struggle with winter? Do you dread it getting dark at 4 p.m? Do you find endless dry grey skies, drizzle and biting tough cold to deal with? So she talks about her time where she's an American who went and spent a year studying her PhD in Norway, and just basically how different cultures, especially cultures who experience things like polar nights, really challenging winters, can have a different mindset altogether about how to deal with it and actually embrace and prepare themselves for winter. So I liked a lot of that, albeit in saying that some of the Scandinavian countries are infrastructurally, I can't believe I said that without stumbling over it, built to deal with snow, ice and all the kind of different, many countries, especially Scotland, the UK, struggle with, you know, snow and ice and all those things. So at first I was like, oh, how much of this can you actually relate to? But she does talk about her experience in speaking with people in the Isle of Lewis, which is the Outer Hebrides, one of the kind of northwest group of islands off the coast of Scotland, Scottish islands, and they get hit by it's where half of my family are from, they get really hit by really bad like winds and rain and grey. So it was good to see those different perspectives. There's definitely tips that I would take forward. My wee sister really struggles with winter, so I think I'm going to pass this on to her to have a read. But there's like, think about your words and your intentions and how you're setting your mindset. So if you're like, it's minging outside, or oh, it's just horrible, then straight away you're telling yourself like it's not that nice outside. So I became really aware of that, and then I was just trying to find, right, so winter practice, active attention, so being aware of nature and things, or preparing yourself for winter. So like, as we transition from autumn to winter, is about taking a slower week. I mean, we can't always do that in work and life, but make less commitments and almost start to adjust yourself. If you need to sleep a longer, if you're feeling more lethargic, that's okay. Like if we look at like the animal world, most animals will adjust to the different seasons. We just keep on going irrespective. So I liked all of that. It kind of gave you permission, not that anyone needs to give me permission, to like slow it down, get cozy and embrace it. Anyway, so if you struggle with winter, recommend. I gave this 4 stars. Next up is Kinda Holy Horror. Kinda Holy Horror explain. This was an arc that I got from Pushkin Press from as it's Augustina Bazterrica's new book, The Unworthy. Finished cover looks like this, which is, I don't know why I'm doing that. I'm filming you from the back of my phone and I can't see you, so I've heard that's better quality. Anyway, any tips on filming from any, like, I'd love to get a camera one day, but I can't afford it just now. Anywho's, that's by the by. Tender is the Flesh is one of my favourite horror books. I think it might have been a debut. It's in translation. I think Augustina's Argentinian, and it's a book about cannibalism. Then she came out with a short story collection, and this is her 3rd translated book called The Unworthy, and I loved it. It is weird as, it's unhinged, it's gory, it's not for everyone, but if you have read this author before, I recommend. If you haven't, I would say if you're interested in unhinged, feminist, radical, religious horror, definitely check it out. We follow an unnamed protagonist who lives in this world which it feels like post-climate crisis, so like the world is environmentally already just dead pretty much. She intermittently gives us flashbacks of how she got to where she is, which is in like a really radical religious convent. It feels like a cult where there's a hierarchy of levels. So there's like the servants, and she's part of a group called the Unworthy, and their aim is to become enlightened. But even when you become enlightened, like they sew your eyes shut, rip out your tongue and pierce your eardrums. So to me that doesn't sound that appealing, but everybody's aiming to become enlightened. The world out there is horrible. It's basically just utter world destruction. There's barely anything alive. Anything outside the convent is deemed contaminated. And then, so she's living this really hard, abusive life in this convent, and then a new person comes along called Lucia, and things in her life change. It is a tiny book. It packs an absolute punch. So all I want to say about it, if you love weird, like very graphic horror, check it out. If not, don't go anywhere near it. Then another non-fiction book is cut from the same cloth, Muslim Women on Life in Britain. It's my turn to pick a book for my in real life book club, a book group, and I picked this one because it'd been on my shelf for at least a couple of years. This is a really, I think it was a very pertinent time to read it. This was a really good, about a whole anthology of different stories from different Muslim women in Britain and their experiences from experiencing what happened with regards to Grenfell, experiences being in therapy, experiences of wearing or not wearing a hijab, being a black Muslim, being a white Muslim, so much in this. And I would say I learned a lot. I shouldn't have had to, but I have, because obviously certainly in the West we get fed a lot of stereotypes and assumptions about Muslim women. There was lots of stuff in here where I hadn't even considered about, because I'm not religious myself, but I hadn't even considered what it must be like in this current climate. So this is kind of set round about or just after COVID, I think. When was it published? I might be wrong actually. Yeah, 2021. So it's off the back of that, but the stories are all very different. What I did think, and it actually went down quite well with my book group, is at first the first essay or two felt a wee bit academic and not as accessible, but it felt academic in its writing. But after like the first one, then it felt like it felt more accessible, and it didn't take me long to read this. Really enjoyed it and would recommend. Next was an arc that I got from Verve Books. Verve Books is an indie publisher in the UK that I really like, and I'd heard this author speak at a book event that I was at, and this was his debut. It's Human Animal by Seth and Insua, and it's really a story of family and family dynamics. So there's a dairy farmer and his family in modern day living on a dairy farm in a world where sustainability and also like actually making money from dairy farming is a challenge. But his son has been off to university, come back and is vegan, and so there's a conflict of interest there. He also, the son kind of helps this activist group come in and try and expose like practices within the dairy farming that really that blow up on the internet. This just creates issues within the family, and so this sounds quite, so it was an interesting take. I believe the author used this story as a means of telling how his story of coming out as gay to his family, which wasn't wholly accepted at the times, but he uses a different topic to kind of, as a mechanic, to tell that story. It was interesting. I feel bad because maybe didn't engage me as much as I hoped. Even, you know, I'm vegan myself, but I was kind of like, yeah, I struggled a wee bit with the writing. The author was lovely though. and it was an interesting book, and I'll pass it on to others who might want to read it. Then, because one of you lovely people gave me a very late to the party memo that the Hunger Games had a Hunger Games book, which was Hunger Games number 0, the Songbirds, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. How did I not know this had came out? Clearly my head was under a rock or something. Anyway, because I'd got so excited about the new book, Sunrise of the Reaping, that comes out this month in March, which is the origin story of Haymitch. This is the origin story of Coriolanus. I can never say his name without like proper focusing. Snow. And so I thought, oh, I better read this then. I managed to get it second hand, and then mostly listened to it in audio. It now goes with my other 3 Hunger Games books. There is a film, that's how long it has been out. So I'll definitely look to watch this. I enjoyed it. It was a bit of a chonk. I really like the Hunger Games. I like the Hunger Games world. We all have assumptions and perceptions of Snow, the main character, like the character in the Hunger Games trilogy, and this was an interesting take on that character and his origin story, so I liked it. And actually I feel but I would say I'm more interested in Haymitch's story than Snow, but you know, it was good to get myself immersed in that world again. Then next is another arc, which was quite unusual. I got this one also from Verve Books, called Hope You're Satisfied by Tania Malik. Welcome to Dubai, as if you've never seen it before. So this is described as The White Lotus meets Below Deck in this astute social satire exploring privilege, immigration, gender with a touch of espionage. Now, this packs a wee punch. I find this quite an interesting read. It feels like a bit of mystery, and it covers so many topics. So it's set in Dubai. No. Yeah. It's set in Dubai in like the 90s, 1990, at the on the cusp of, like, at the beginnings of the first Gulf War. So, which is a few hundred miles away from from the city of Dubai. So it's kind of Dubai before it got all the way Dubai is now, like glam and glitz, and you know, a very expensive man-made sort of place. So it was interesting to see that. And then you follow Ria, who's 25. She becomes like a tour guide. Like she works for a tour guide, Discover Arabia. She's from India, so she's migrated over there, and she's earning money to try and send back to her family, but also because she wants to, she wants out of India and wants to, you know, make money and make her way in the world. But the tour guide company seems to, so off the back of the war starting, more people seem to be getting a wee bit like, not sure if we'll go to Dubai. And she normally works with people that will come over and pay for tour guides and stuff while they're there. But then there's this kind of dodgy rich guy who uses Discover Arabia tours, and then she gets involved in helping them, which is something to do with like carrying packages and stuff between the airport. So that's where I think the dirty dealings and the espionage come in. Really interesting, and it's not a part of the world I've read much about. I remember the 1990s and the Gulf War, but not from that perspective. So that was really interesting. It gives an interesting perspective on immigrants' life in Dubai. So yeah, an interesting voice to hear. Then next up, right, before I show you this one, I have had 5-star and 4-star reads with this author, Christina Henry, and she has, so I've Near the Bone, I loved. The Girl in Red, which is a kind of Little Red Riding Hood retelling, I loved. This is her retelling of, it's called The Lost Boy, technically a retelling, or not just about Peter Pan, but of Captain Hook, really. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I gave it 1 star because she's written a book about it. It's not a fairy tale I've got that much interest in. But then neither is Little Red Riding Hood. which I loved. This one I was bored. I didn't get engaged with the characters. I really did. I mean, Peter Pan was nasty, but I think that was the purpose. But I think there could have been so much more happened in this book that it didn't, and that's all I'm saying about it. Then we have Riley Sager. I was trying to go through it. I've read loads of Riley Sager. He's an auto-buy author. This one I'd got ages ago. It's in his back catalogue. Haven't read it. Lock Every Door. Welcome to your new home. You may never leave. Do you know, solid 3-star thriller. Didn't love it. Didn't not like it. You follow, who's the main character? Oh, my hair's stuck in this. Jules. So Jules gets a job basically babysitting an apartment. For like fancy apartments. The rules are she can't take anyone in, she's not allowed to take photos of it. It's all quite suspect, because, and the reason she's taken on because she's recently, like, I think she's split up with somebody and basically becomes homeless. Anyway, she bumps into a neighbour who confides in the dark history of this apartment block, which she kind of like brushes it off a bit as like harmless storytelling until that person then goes missing. So you've got sort of rich people apartment vibes. It feels like a bit locked room. It was a bit far out there, which sometimes Riley Sager does quite a lot, and I don't mind, but this was all right. It was all right. It was all right. This one is another Christina Henry. 1 star. 3.75, nearly 4. I would say this is accessible horror, more horror thriller. We follow, how can I never remember people's names? We follow Harry, who's a single mum. You find out pretty early that she became a teenage mum when she was young. Parents she ran away from her parents before then because they were kind of really conservative religious, and she was into horror movies and all of that, and like celebrating Halloween. That's a kind of, it's not a main part of the story. The main part of the story is that she's now an adult with a teenage son and struggling to live and keep the apartment and stuff. So she has a kind of part-time job as a cleaner in the house of Javier Castillo, who is a revered horror director. She goes into his, he basically is very reclusive, he never leaves. She goes into his house and cleans the rooms, but every so often she's hearing noises like behind a wall, or is convinced she sees something. And then, I'm not going to tell you anymore because it might spoil it, but this was a great sort of haunted house ghost story with a great kind of, well, her and her son have an absolute love of horror movies. So her son gets to meet him at some point, and he's like this revered director, so he's kind of in awe. Harry is a bit like, there's suspect stuff going on, and that's all I'm going to say. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun read. I think if you ever want to dip your toes into horror, this is probably a good starting place, because it's more ghostly, haunted rather than gore. Then, you lovely people picked Baby Teeth by Zoje Stage, which is a kind of dark kiddie thriller. It gave me Omen vibes, but not in a horror way. So you've got Hannah, the 7-year-old child, and Suzette, who is her mum. Hannah is the epitome of a dark, twisted, like vengeful kid who really doesn't like her mum, loves her dad, and basically spends most of the book. You've got the two POVs. You've got Suzette and Hannah, and which I quite enjoyed, and you go between both points of view. Hannah trying to manipulate her mum and possibly get rid of her mum so she has her dad all to herself, and Suzette trying to, you know, explain to her husband what's been happening with their daughter and what's wrong with their daughter and all of that dynamic. It was a good old icky, unnerving page turner. I kind of really enjoyed it. I'm going to pass it on to my friend now that I've finished it. She quite fancied it. See if you're looking for a good page turning thriller with an evil child. That's it. Then, I'm clearly sitting up here and I can't be bothered moving. Then I finally picked up a book I bought last year. I was super excited about because I do love Josh Malerman, the author of Bird Box. It was Incidents Around the House. Now in this book it is told through 8-year-old Bella, who's the narrator. Oh, Lucy's back. She's been busy. She just jumped on the seat in front of me. She's been busy trying to get into the waitress office, the other half's, because he's had a vegan roll and sausage, and she wants some of it, and could hear her scratching at the door and he was having none of it. So anyways, this one we follow Bella, who lives with her mum and dad, and she has this presence in the house that she keeps seeing and keeps talking to her, that she refers to as the other mommy, and other mommy keeps saying, what is the actual phrase? Can I go inside your heart? So immediately I kind of got sort of Coraline by Neil Gaiman. We can't talk about Neil Gaiman vibes. It's a film and book that I love, but we can't talk about it anymore because cancelled. Anyways, it gave me those vibes, but I think it was but with a different twist. So the full narration is from Bella's point of view, and she's really good at like expressing how much this other mummy is creeping her out, and then her parents become aware of said other mummy, that it's not just an imaginary friend, that literally there is something in this house that is almost haunting them, the house, or Bella. We also get an insight into, because her mum and dad seem to, when they're putting Bella to sleep, when they think Bella's asleep, almost have a sharing of an internal monologue out loud when they think Bella's sleeping, and you start to explore the complexities of their what feels like not so happy marriage. So that was an interesting perspective, and then they start to get really freaked out by other mommy. So it's a great paranormal haunting sort of possession story. It icked me out. I would recommend it both. See if I went between kind of paper and audio. If you have the luxury of reading this in audio, I would, because it's from Bella's point of view and it just makes it icky. Solid 4 out of 5 stars for this one. I really enjoyed it. Then there's another horror which felt like folk horror. It's called Smother Moss by Elisa Allering. I'm going to have to read you the synopsis because I came out the other side not really knowing what happened. So it says, in 1980s Appalachia, life isn't easy for Sheila. She takes care of her great aunt, the garden and home, and the rabbits, and forages for mushrooms in the forest, all while her mother works back-breaking shifts at a nearby asylum. It's her little sister, Angie, who she also cares for as well, but Angie is like obsessed by the movie Rambo, because it's set in the 80s, is convinced the Russians are coming, so is always in like end of the world sort of planning. And then I think there is like a pair of women hikers are brutally murdered on the Appalachian Trail that they live off of, and so her wee sister Angie is convinced they're going to find the murderer, or that the murderer is going to come for them, so she is in that panic mode. It's folk horror. I love the setting. I love the timeline, like set in the 80s, but I'm not going to lie, like I really struggled with the writing and actually what the heck happened. So I buddy read it, and I think that's the only reason I finished it. Then, conveniently, because March is it a few of the booktubers I follow do Irish readathon in March, because obviously St. Patrick's Day, and this is a book, an Irish book by an Irish author who I've never read before. It is Hazel Hayes, and it's Better by Far. This is a lovely contemporary literature or contemporary fiction that sounds like it's kinda about romance, but it's actually about finding love and understanding yourself. So we follow Kate and Finn, who have just ended a relationship, I think mostly on Finn's side. They agree to basically, because they've got an apartment, they've got 12 weeks left in their lease, so they agree to do 1 week Kate will live there, the next week Finn will live there, and so they work off and on. So they're occupying the same space but at different times. On paper that makes sense. In practice, as you can imagine, certainly from Kate's point of view, which is mostly what we follow, she kind of feels like it's living with a ghost and starts to wonder what Finn is up to. It calls it a genre-defying novel. And it does a really good job. Kate's such a lovely character, and she's going through all the motions of a breakup, but also trying to understand, because I think they were together 7 years or something like that. Trying to she feels in limbo, and so is trying to figure out who she really is. Who is she without this other person in her life? And also is Finn, she starts to wonder what Finn's getting on with his life, and who is she without that other person, and the relationships around them. Also, I would say less about romance, romantic relationships, and more about understanding yourself and finding love in yourself. So I really enjoyed this. I've not read anything else by this author, but I would be interested. My friend lent me this book, so I'll be giving that back to her, but I really enjoyed it. I'll put it over here so I remember to give it back. Then this one I need to get back to the library. Oh, I think I've thingied a page now. Oh, don't judge. So this is The Gathering by C.J. Tudor. Set in Welcome to Dead Heart, Alaska. Population 673 living. So a boy is found with his throat ripped out. That's how the synopsis starts. The blood drained from his body. It's not the first such killing, and the town knows who to blame: the vampire colony in the mountains. So we're in a world where in Dead Heart, I don't even know, I'm assuming that's made up, where they live alongside a colony of vampires, where there's kind of this agreement between the communities that, living people are no-go. So when this boy turns up dead, the community are it's the vampires, it's a vampire colony. But Detective Barbara Atkins thinks the evidence doesn't stack up and that maybe it's been a setup. So her job is to, I quote, is she hunting a cold-blooded murderer or a bloodthirsty monster? Who do they all fear the most? It's such a such an unusual take on a vampire story. I really enjoyed it. I thought the world it was created, which is in Alaska in the snow in the winter, the vampire, there was an icky head of the vampire colony who felt like she was about 12 or something like that, and she was proper creepy. It was just so well done. I really, really enjoyed it. Fast-paced page turner, and I would say if you like vampires, or if you're not sure if you like vampire story, this was a unique not retelling, it doesn't tell of anything, a unique premise, and I really, really enjoyed it. She gets described as the UK's, Britain's female Stephen King, is how she gets. So check that out. Now, the two books that I haven't finished yet, no, I have finished, the two books that I don't have physically is Birdman, which I read on audio thanks to one of you lovely people who recommended Mo Hayder, who's an author I hadn't ever heard of, given that I really like dark thrillers, so that's quite a surprise. It's the first in the detective series that they have, and kind of for the life of me remember, and we discover basically there's a really dark serial killer on the loose who bodies of some women have turned up, and inside them are not even going to go into the detail, but let's just say that it's a chunky book, but it's quite a lot of hours on audio, I can't remember, but I did feel like it was a bit longer than the usual thrillers I read, so I did notice that, but that is a very small point. I really enjoyed learning about the detective, about the crime that was being, I mean, it was, see, if you're like Chris Carter, Jennifer Hillier, Karen Slaughter, like this is your type of thriller. Really enjoyed it, so I haven't googled it yet. I need to find out what the next one is so I can request it from the library in Libby. But no, thanks very much for flagging that both this author and this series have not, so I've got some new books to check, so I'll be able to follow on in the series and check that out. Kind of like what I'm doing with the Chris Carter, is it John Hunter? Can't remember, series that I've started collecting so I can read through them. Dark, gory thrillers. So really enjoyed that. And then, talking of thrillers, I read an ebook of Beautiful Ugly. Thanks, I got it on NetGalley. Alice Feeney, I really like her books. She can be a bit hit and miss for me sometimes. Daisy Darker is one of my favourites, and this one was really good. It's set, so there's an author, so I love books about books or authors or writing. There's an author, he's married to this woman, and you kind of see early on in the beginnings of the relationship, he's getting all excited because he's about to get nominated for like New York Times bestseller list or something, and he's and she was about to be, she was driving home to be there for when he gets this announcement, and she's in the car speaking to him, and she's like, I'm on my way, and then all of a sudden he hears something happen and her get out the car to see, because she could see a body or something like that, and then she disappears. He can hear it all at the end of the phone. She disappears, and then we're like a year later, his wife is still missing, presumed dead, and he's like, he's basically not got his life together since that, as you can imagine. So his publicist says, look, there's this tiny little island, remote island in Scotland that another author left me his like cabin or whatever in his will. He used to write there. I think you should go there, it'd be good for you. He goes to this little island and finds a very interesting community of people, where he realizes that he wants to get over, like he has to leave his car behind. There's like only so many sailings over to this island, and then he starts to go like, there's something weird about this island. There's quite a few women on the island who get to meet him and speak to him and talk about being part of the community or not part of the community. So that's all I'm going to say. In true Alice Feeney style, it takes twists and turns that I never saw coming, and I really enjoyed it. It was a really good, fast-paced page turner with twists I never saw and an ending that I thought was really good. So this was a book that's came out after Good Bad Girl, I think it was, which I really didn't enjoy, and I think it's because I'm so used to kind of fast-paced, twisty thrillers from Alice Feeney, and that one was more like a domestic drama or something. This one I thought was amazing. Highly recommend it. That was everything I read in February. Put my laptop down. Let me know if you've read any of them, if you fancy reading any of them after my reviews or feedback, and also let me know if you've had any 4 or 5 star reads in February in the comments, because I'd love to know. Next is my March hopefuls, some of which I've had here, and 2 I'm going to pick out my TBRs from my shelf. I'm going to pick out from there, so I'll do that towards the end. First up is a book that came out in January, end of January. I got it just before I went on holiday, and it was a hardback, and I'm like, oh, I'm not taking a hardback on holiday, but I'm desperate to read it. It's The Lamb by Lucy Rose. All I know is it's folk horror about cannibalism, where we have a mother and daughter who live, I think, in like a... Margot and Mama have lived in the forest since Margot can remember. And they have a relationship where sometimes people will come along, and I don't know if they find people, and invite them in and then possibly eat them. That's all I know. That's all I want to know. and I'm very excited about it. This came on my radar because I went to an online book event where I listened to an author who was the Book of X, I think it was, Rose, I can't remember their name, and the other author on was Lucy Rose, and she was so nice, and this sounded amazing. So I've got that one. Also, a Karen Slaughter that I've never read. I think it's a standalone that I've heard loads of YouTubers over the years on YouTube talk about this being an amazing thriller. It's Pretty Girls. I have no idea what it's about, so about to read it with you. It says, a missing girl, a hope never lost, a killer never found. 20 years ago, Claire Scott's elder sister, Julia, went missing. It was a mystery that was never solved and it tore the family apart. Now another girl has disappeared with chilling echoes of the past, and Claire is convinced that Julia's disappearance is linked. But when she begins to learn the truth about her sister, she is confronted with a shocking discovery and nothing will ever be the same. I don't know when this ever came out. I got this second hand. Let me see. 2015. It's actually not 10 years old. Oh. So I'm hoping to buddy read this with some friends because I've got a request on it from Libby to read that. So I really want to. Then finally I bought this, as I mentioned, Riley Sager, love him, auto-buy author, and I pre-ordered this one. When did this one come out? Don't tell me it was last year. 2023. I pre-ordered it. Have I read it? No, because that is me. And I've also pre-ordered his new one that is coming out this year, With a Vengeance it's called, in the summer. This one came out in the summer of 2023, I think. I still haven't read it, but I hear good things, so I am definitely going to read it because I cannot get another pre-order from Riley Sager and be behind. So the only one left, and I've only ever heard good reviews. Sometimes Riley Sager's books can be hit and miss for some thriller fans, so I'm very excited about going into this one. Then I was very lucky that Head of Zeus, publisher of this book, sent me this as an ARC, so I'm going to be reading that very soon actually. It's called Everyone in the Group Chat Dies. I mean, how can you not love this cover? And also just the premise. I got this, so it comes out on the 13th of March, and I'm just going to read. Kirby Cornell needs a break from everything. Her crumbling flat is a sleepy town famous for its sausage rolls and second-rate serial killers from the 90s. Her dead-end job, her sleazy landlord, her messy housemates, and most of all, the terrible thing they did. Luckily, that hasn't caught up with her just yet, until a new message on their group chat pops up. Everyone in the group chat will die. It's the first text her ex-flatmate and social media sleuth Esme has sent for ages. But that's not the really weird thing. The really weird thing is Esme died a year ago. So it's even written out in like chat. I know my lovely friend Jen, who watches here and is on Bookstagram, recently read this. I think she got an ER, can't remember, and really enjoyed it. So I'm here for some... Oh, I think there might be some mixed media in here. Did you see it? I do love that. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this will be a fun ride. Then, two books I'm currently reading just now, so they're definitely March reads, is Half-Arsed Human by Lena Norms, which is how to live better without burning out. And so I'm maybe a third into this, and it's a great book. It's like a self-help book, but like, it's basically how in the world, especially women or anyone really, but how in the world we're expected to do everything to 100%. We're supposed to be like amazing, have amazing jobs and be amazing, give 100% to our jobs and 100% to our life outside. And you know, if you've got family or caring or just like having a side hustle, crafting, doing everything right. And the reality is we're all in possible meltdown all of the time. The world is hard. So it's basically how to live better without burning out, and actually how to half-arse everything and it's still okay. So like about your style, your career, being vegan, home, body, hope. So rather than all these expectations that society puts on us, it's almost like this is a self-help book that is really like no other self-help book, I think, which is really like just get on and do what you can do. I'm a third through. Lena Norms is on BookTube, and it was actually Lauren in the books who mentioned this one that got me quite excited. So I'm really enjoying it because I feel validated, and we're all just human and not superhuman, which is what I'm learning from this. And then I'm also reading The Wedding People, like halfway through, and it's by Alison Espak, or Pach, I don't know how you pronounce it. So, as someone who's not really into romance books, I would say do not judge this book by its title or its cover. But also, like, if you're really into like weddings and stuff, I mean, that's part of the topic, but this is not what it's about. Well, it is. Right, let me get to the gist. We follow Phoebe, who takes herself off to a fancy hotel because her marriage has just ended and she's in a dark place, and she's like, I'm just going to take myself to this lovely place and take my own life. And she turns up and she realises the whole place has been taken over by a wedding. And Lilla, the bride, bumps into her in the lift, and she's like, why are you here? She's like, oh, I'm here to actually kill myself. And Lilla's like, no, this is my wedding. I've paid a lot of money. It's a week-long wedding. You cannot do this at my wedding. And so ensues an unusual relationship between these two people and the other wedding people. And so far, I'm finding this, like, there's times when I'm laughing and there's characters in here that are really interesting, and you're finding out a lot about Lilla and her $1 million wedding, and also Phoebe's kind of, like, I'm just here to, like, end my life, just let me get on. Love the premise, and so far, I'm, like, so excited by this. And now, to add to my hopefuls, as I slowly but surely try and work through the books that I'm reading on my shelf, although in saying that, right, the only one left is on my shelf. Pretty Girls and The Lamb are on my shelf. If I pick any of these out, it's because I'll put them aside because I've already picked them out on the shelf. I didn't really go very deep. Let's see. Right. The Whispering Muse by Laura Purcell. I don't know where that is. Found it. It was over in the bookshelf over there. It is this one here. Which I think I got in my horror book subscription. I can't remember. No, I got it as a birthday gift from Chaz on Book Talk. It says, betrayed by those she trusted, former lady's maid Jenny Wilcox is desperate for money to support her and her younger siblings. When she's offered a position in the costume department of London's Mercury Theatre, she jumps at the opportunity, but dressing volatile lead actress Lilith is more than she reckoned on. Scandalous and talented in equal measure, Lilith claims to have made a pact with the tragic muse to secure her success. Jenny is sceptical. With her beliefs and loyalties torn, Jenny starts to fear that when the muse comes calling for payment, the costs will be too high. It's blurred by Catriona Ward, who I love. And Sarah Pinborough says, a sumptuous piece of Gothic set in theatre populated by the beautiful and the damned. I mean, the cover is stunning, isn't it? And then the next one off my books shelf is The Dragon in the Library by Louise Stowell. Oh, I think this one might be behind me. Oh, here it is. Oh, and that's timely because it's middle grade March. This is definitely a middle grade. Which I better be able to read. Look at it. Save the library, save the world. Kit can't stand reading. She'd much rather be outside playing games and getting muddy than stuck inside a book. But when she's dragged along to a library one day by her two best friends, she makes an incredible discovery, and it's soon up to Kit and her friends to save the library and the world. Ah, this sounds fun. I think I got this ages ago. Oh, look. There's some nice illustrations in there as well. So that there. Oh, I'm quite chuffed. That's quite a mix. And because it is a middle grade March for some of our lovely folks, and I do love a bit of middle grade, I am going to try and start rereading the Pages and Co books, Tilly and the Book Wanderers. So I will keep you posted if that actually happens. I'm now just stacking these up so I can show you my March hopefuls, which probably aren't going to be in the right word order. Like, oh, they're all upside down. How do I do this? And here we go. Some of March's hopefuls. Let's see if I get, or if I commit myself to any of these hopefuls. They're not, I'm a very mood reader, so I'll find out if that actually happens. So I'll need to put another pile here to remind me what I'm actually reading. And that there, whew, book reviews, recent reads, wrap up, hopefuls, and well, you did help me pick, because you guys were the reason that I've ended up doing this, so I can try and read more from my bookshelves. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll keep you posted throughout the month. So let me know. Have you got any March hopefuls? Have you got anything that is like a must read in the month of March? Let's not even think about the ones that are coming out this month that I'll not get to. And keep me posted. Let me know your thoughts. And also, let me know in the comments, is there anything else that you'd like me to chat to you about in videos? Any topics, genres? Let me know. And also, if you got this far and don't know what to say but would like to let me know you're watching, because comments do make a difference, give me a book stack emoji. I'd love that. And we'll carry on the conversation in comments. And if you don't already subscribe, please do, as I'd love to keep chatting to you and sharing more videos about books. And so until next time, when I see you in another bookish video, keep reading.